The impact of sudden temperature changes on the brain, my experience and the science behind it. Have you ever wondered what happens to the brain when exposed to extreme temperature shifts in a short period? I lived through it twice and it nearly destroyed me both times. The first incident, a night that changed everything. The night of my accident, the temperature around my head rose by 40 degrees in just 10 minutes. My body reacted instantly. I started sweating uncontrollably, trying to regulate my temperature. When I woke up, my bed was freezing cold, and my body had gone into shock. From that moment on, my brain was no longer the same. I started to behave irrationally, and my mind became sick. The second incident, my brain became too sensitive. 2 years later, it happened again. This time, I was cycling, and I was dressed incorrectly for the weather. As I pedaled, I started sweating excessively, and when my body temperature suddenly dropped due to wine exposure and dehydration, I entered a state of neurological dysfunction again. But here's the key difference. This wouldn't have happened if my brain hadn't been weakened by the first incident. After the initial shock, my nervous system became hypersensitive to temperature changes. My brain was no longer able to handle stress like it used to. The medical explanation? Heat shock and autonomic disruption. A rapid temperature rise forces the brain to expand blood vessels, vasodilation, lowering blood pressure and causing temporary oxygen deprivation in the brain. This can lead to confusion, dizziness, and cognitive dysfunction. Sudden cooling and hypothermic shock, going from extreme heat to cold so quickly triggers vasoconstriction, which cuts off oxygen to certain brain areas. The brain can swell, cerebral edema, neurotransmitters get disrupted, and a state of neuroinflammation can develop. Long-term effects on the brain. Repeated exposure to heat and cold stress can cause prolonged neuroinflammation, leading to irrational behavior, paranoia, and confusion. If the brain suffered microvascular damage, cognitive recovery can take a long time. The first trauma made my nervous system hypersensitive, meaning future incidents triggered similar effects more easily. The second time, my brain didn't even need as much stress. It had already been weakened. Why this matters? What happened to me wasn't just a physical reaction, it was a brain injury. And the worst part, nobody understood what I was going through. If extreme temperature shifts can do this to a healthy brain, imagine what they can do to people in vulnerable conditions. I'm sharing this because awareness matters. If you or someone you know experiences sudden cognitive changes after extreme heat or cold exposure, don't ignore it. The brain is fragile, and understanding what happens to it can be the key to recovery.